Welcome back to Petty Astrology. I'm your host, Casey Felton-Lui, and if you're listening and you're like, what the hell are you doing here? You told me that there was going to be no episode this week. And it's true, I am busy preparing season 3, but I have a treat for you. It is another astrology podcast that I am a frequent guest on. It's called Astrology Fight Club. This is a particularly great episode where we're talking about things like spiritual ego, a little bit of TikTok astrology drama, but also what to look out for when you're looking for mentors or teachers in astrology or any spiritual subject. And we also talk about a great new way that you can learn astrology. So enjoy this conversation, and I will be back at you with a fresh new season of Petty Astrology on June 12th. And if you can't wait until then, well, you need to head over to my Patreon. That's how you support this podcast. And as a thank you, I give you all kinds of bonus content, including bonus episodes, meditations, and all kinds of cool astrology stuff. You can find those links in the show notes.
Certainly has been a Memorial weekend.
Yeah, it really has.
I didn't really do much. I mean, I went over to my dad's house and I got to visit with the kitties. Worked on my car, so it's got new spark plugs, which is so nice. It actually works a lot better now. There's still something I think with the engine, but it's so old, it could be anything. We'll see. And then hopefully we'll get my motorcycle soon. We still have to do some maintenance on that, so we're just getting all the things together.
That's awesome. I'm excited. I want some cunty astrologer photos of you on your bike. I just think that would be fucking
God,
cool.
I need to do a photo shoot.
Right? I think that would be cool as hell.
Some live action shots.
Right? We should get some decals for your helmet. I'm sorry I'm decorating
oh my God.
you. But imagine some astrology decals on your helmet. I think that would be dope. Also, I have this vision. I've talked to you about it before, but kind of like a biker gang vest, but with astrology stuff on the back. I think that would be dope.
It would be. Oh my God.
Right?
I just watched that RuPaul's Drag Race where they did a photo shoot on bikes. So this is funny. Now I can see it in my
that's evidence.
In my head, hair flowing in the wind.
I think that would be super cool. If I saw that on the road, I would be so fucking excited.
That's astrologer Jen.
Right?
Oh my God.
Would that be dope? Oh my God. You could put your username on the back.
Yeah, like a hashtag.
Yeah.
I saw astrologer Jen.
Yeah.
Follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my Patreon.
I think that would be a slay. That's a slay grassroots marketing campaign.
Right? I mean, I'll just have to not drive like an asshole, and then people will.
Yeah.
Can't be cutting people off and shit.
Yeah. Is that a big problem there? Is it trafficky enough to where you can cut people off? Okay, I was that surprises me. That's more of a city thing.
Yeah, there's not enough traffic for that to happen.
You start making bad situations in your town.
I just start going in front of people and break.
Yeah, so you can go viral. This asshole.
Yeah, I just need those dash cam, footage uploaded to TikTok and stuff.
Exactly. Perfect.
What? He said, "Don't do that, Mom. Be safe." He's yelling at me.
Is that Noodle?
Yes. Pumpkin's here too, but he's sitting on the floor, so they switched.
Oh.
Because Pumpkin was up on the little stool I have next to me during our last Petty Astrology recording, and now Noodle's turn. So.
Oh shit.
They're switching out.
Yeah, they clocked out, clocked in. Jen, I know it's your podcast, but can you tell us about your Patreon?
I launched my Patreon a couple days ago. Oh, hello, Noodle.
And then Noodle launched himself into your face.
Yeah. So I started my Patreon. It starts at $5 a month just for podcast support. If you want some behind the scenes content. Might be doing like some bonus episodes where it's just me yapping at you.
Ooh.
Or like mini lessons if there's something that you're curious about. I can do like, you know, little mini videos or podcasts about that stuff. And then the other tier is the astrology discussion group that I have been wanting to start. So we are starting that in June. So if you want to join, link will be in the show notes on my Patreon. It would just it'd be like the office hours I did for the natal astrology classes and the intermediate astrology class last year. Just so fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited for you to have this going because you're such a good teacher, Jen. And I think a lot of people really benefit from having conversations with you about astrology. So, and Lord knows we need some better astrologers out there. Jesus Christ.
I know. So if you want to come
God
to
help us.
my astrology boot camp, I'm not a hard ass, but
no, you're so nice to your students, and that is something that I really appreciate because not everybody is. And I think it's a strange way to teach people. But, you know, you can't control what other people do. But I think Jen is a very safe educator and really cares about their students. Like, I love how passionate you are about astrology and like teaching astrology specifically. Because as we know, I did teach a class. I am technically a teacher, which is fucking weird. I'm still processing that, but I'll do that on my own time, my own podcast. But
unpack that later.
Yeah, well, we'll save that for later. But you have such a passion for like teaching people, you know, the building blocks of astrology in a way that like it's just not my skill at this point in time. And so I love that you're so good at that. And I love that we all have like different kind of interests. Like they all kind of overlap, but like we have kind of our different areas that we all kind of hang out in. And so I think I love it. I'm happy for you to be making moves. I'm a cat moon, and I like and I have so much in my fourth house that when like my friends, my people do stuff, it's like I would say just as exciting to me as when I do stuff. Like I genuinely really love watching my friends do cool stuff. Like I just like it, I don't know, just because I know like I've spent so many years telling people like because I observe people the way that I do, I'm like, I know that you're good at this. You know, I know that you can do such and such. And like, I don't know. And then so when I see them doing it, I'm like, yay.
Yeah.
The Cancerian, I'm sure too, is just like,
yeah,
everyone's my babies.
Yeah, I really love that about, I guess, our group, because I always do feel so supported by you guys. And then when you share your wins with me, like I do get like just as excited as if it was something happening to me.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, I love what you guys do, and I think you're super cool, and I am so glad that we met each other.
I know. That's one of my favorite things about being a person.
I was just going to say, I can't imagine someone throwing that away.
I know. Like, it's just, you guys are some of the coolest people I've met.
Same. Oh my God. So much agree.
Yeah. But like, it's like, yeah. And it's like the astrology in and of itself, awesome. Great that we can talk astrology, but also like y'all are very funny and also very caring. It's like, it's hard to find all of that in one package.
Yeah. Caring, cool, funny, protective,
hot, cunty.
Yeah, hot, cunty, sexy as fuck. Like,
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Literally a total package.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. So I'm very excited that we're making moves. Like, I'm glad to not be the only person on Patreon anymore. You know, like, I don't know. It's just like it's just a different thing. It's a different, like, you're building a community of some kind and you're delivering information in a different way. And I don't know. I just think it's cool. I think it's cool that we're like all establishing our own spaces and kind of our own, you know, corner of the astrological world.
Yeah, it is cool to like, I'm excited to cultivate that, to have like people that resonate with what I have to say and how I like to speak about astrology and, pass that knowledge on to other people so that we can spread our radical astrology far and wide.
Right,
Plant
I
the
know.
seeds.
Yes, they'll be doing congressional hearings about us in a decade. Could you imagine?
Oh my god.
That would be kind of a slay, Are you even doing anything right if you haven't had Congress, debate about what the hell's going on?
Yeah, if you're not on some sort of government list, like,
right? Who gives a fuck?
What are my neighbors doing? Jesus.
Right.
They're like hammering some plywood? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, just Memorial Day, hammering some plywood.
Yeah.
Banging around. Oh, I was going to say something. I just forgot what it was. It was about Jen slaying. I don't remember what it was. Jen is slaying.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
Jen is always slaying.
Jen is always slaying. I think, yeah, we, as a group, I think we do slay a lot. There's always slays happening.
What do you call a group of bitches who slay? Like, there's got to be a name for it.
A gaggle.
A gaggle.
I was thinking slunt, but that was a combination of slay and cunt.
They slunt again.
They slunt.
Those slunts.
Yes, I love it.
They slunted.
Okay, let's use that.
Slunt. Slunting.
Slunt.
Yeah. It's also hard to find like true like unhinged astrology in a way that's not like actually a threat.
Yeah, it's not like genuinely off the rocker.
Genuinely frightening, leading people to bad places. We're unhinged in a very safe way, I feel like.
Yes. Yeah. The best.
Yeah. There's been a little bit of tea in the TikTok astrology realm. It's been very interesting to see people who apparently have studied with people for like a long time just be like, oh, actually this is bad for me. I'm leaving.
Yeah, it's like some sudden realizations about teachers and people working with, which I thought was interesting because I don't like that the person in particular we're talking about has been an issue for a while, and I just the way he talks about astrology I don't like, and I don't know, it's always been off-putting to me, so I've had him blocked for a long time, but then to have that kind of like I don't know, confirmed by someone that actually studied with him and worked very closely with him for years, it's like wow. But yeah, you always have to have that sort of discernment about your teachers, even if you learned stuff from them at a certain point. You kind of need to recognize when it's time to go, when what they're doing doesn't align with you anymore, and it's time to like find someone else to study with. And if there's ever a teacher that's telling you that you can't work with anybody else, you can't study any other like way of doing astrology, like that's a red flag. Like, I always would encourage students that work with me, like I'm not the end all be all of astrology, and there's plenty of other perspectives that you can get from so many other people. Like I certainly have my own perspective because of my beliefs and the things I've studied, so I can share that with you, but everybody has to kind of build their own way of interpreting and using astrology. Like we have shared rules, but there's like the particulars about it can differ depending on like how you see the world and like your philosophies and stuff. So you don't ever have to try to like fit yourself into a box to please a teacher. I would say definitely don't do that. And if there's somebody that's like coming at you for stuff like that, for talking to other astrologers or people just like outside of a certain group, that's not cool.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate because in the metaphysical space in general, like, because the knowledge isn't necessarily like always easy to come by. So I think that when people find a teacher that works for them at a particular time, it can be really easy to feel like you gotta like stick with that, or you gotta hold on to that thing that you found that's so precious. And the reality of it is that like even if you don't agree with certain stuff, it's like it is important, I think, to study other things and kind of get a wider view of things. And also, like, I think that for me anyways, I think that the way that a teacher or a mentor like conducts themselves is a really important thing. And so like this person in particular, we have personally witnessed many times, just being like a hateful bigot, and he harbors, very harmful beliefs on a personal level, in my opinion. So for me, that's a deal breaker in terms of, mentorship. If I don't respect the ethics or the morality of the person, that's going to be an issue for me, like as somebody that studies directly under somebody, so I was glad to see that this young person, I mean, they look younger than, like, well younger than me. I don't know how old they are, but they look like a pretty young person. And so for them to come out and, disavow their mentor and somebody who is like somebody that we see actively going after people.
Yeah, if you're wondering why we're not saying their name, it's because they have like a group of people that will actively go after people. So if you want to know, I will tell you, but in the Patreon.
Yeah.
So give me $5 and I'll take the risk and I'll tell you
right.
who we're talking about.
This is somebody that, is really, I would even say, abusive just out in the world towards other people that he doesn't even know. And also, he's like a conservative Republican. So
yeah, there's like a lot of calling out of other astrologers. And I think in a way that is not helpful. Just being like, oh, this person's like starting a cult, and talking about Chris Brennan, like, just leave that little freak man alone on his little podcast. Like, he's doing fine. Okay, I like his stuff. We don't agree on like everything on how we do astrology, but like he's fine.
Yeah.
He's like he's a historian. Leave him alone.
Yeah. Well, and also accusing him of stealing your ideas. I'm like, I think dude has read a lot more than you about astrology. Like, again, I also don't agree with everything that Chris Brennan says or the type of astrology that he does, but like I do think he's a very smart person that has obviously studied a lot. I don't think he's stealing ideas from a random dude on TikTok.
Right.
Like, no, just because you have similar ideas, I mean, a lot of astrology is just like built on other knowledge and it's shared. And this guy claims that he fixed astrology and invented a whole new system. Like,
okay.
Like,
yeah, millions of years, and you were the only one to fix astrology. Like, okay,
like, buddy, where's the actual? Yeah, where's the actual math that you're talking about that people leave behind? Like, do you actually know? I don't want to know. I don't want to like have any conversation with this man. Like, just ugh.
Yeah, it's funny too. Vibes. Even the mentee who was saying they were ending their relationship with him was like, he claims to have fixed astrology, but but where?
They're like, oh, it's going to be patented, and then if you use our system, we're going to sue you. I'm like, that's not how transfer of knowledge works. Of like having students, it's not how that works.
Yeah.
Like
it's also funny too because it's like, I don't know. It just seems like if you notice that somebody is really like self-aggrandizing in the way that they do their astrology, I think you should ask questions about like why. If somebody's like, I am the end all be all of astrological knowledge and, there's nobody better than me. First of all, if that's true, I would wonder why you need to say it so much. But
Like every video.
Yeah. Well, in like in any kind of astrological space or any kind of spiritual type space, again, somebody being like, I am the best, I have the secrets, I have it all, like, they may know things, but to make it this, I'm the one, the chosen one or whatever that's here to save astrology, it's a little bit like, okay. I would that's a signal to me to head out.
Yeah.
So, no.
Yeah, there's like a big difference between being confident in your abilities and then being so far up your own ass that you think you're the only one that can do astrology right.
Yeah. Or that you don't respect like other people that actually, have studied their work, their thoughts. Like, you don't have to agree, but to respect that they, can have those thoughts and that they might actually know a thing or two, I think is really important. I think it's particularly important, I think, when you're training people as well, because even though you might have done something longer, I think the respect is still really an important part of that equation. And why are you teaching people if you don't respect their minds?
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the big part of teaching for me is like I have a lot of students that maybe they're like older than me, they work in different fields, they have different perspectives to share. So there's sometimes that they'll like challenge me on a certain thing, and that's not like a bad thing. I'm not gonna ever get upset if someone has a different perspective and wants to share that and have like a genuine conversation. It's not just like you're wrong. But like we can explore that. Like there's I'm always open to changing my mind when presented with new information. Like there's no
threat. There's no threat. There's no threat.
Just...
If you know what you know, I mean, calm down. Like, you're gonna be fine. Nobody's gonna rip that information out of your head. You can expose yourself to other ideas and actually like give them a thought.
I would implore people to expose themselves to other ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're always right about everything, that's interesting. Sure.
Yes, only a fool is always right.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a problem. Like, I don't resent people for having an ego. I certainly don't resent people for having confidence, because I do think that there's a lot of forces at work in the world that would like us to be unconfident, unstable, unsure of ourselves and what we know. And I don't know, like when you add the spiritual, stuff to it, and I think it can get really gross really
it can
quick.
just devolve into like the chosen one narrative very fast.
Yeah, and I think that's just in terms of like, being out in these spaces. It's a thing to look for. It's a real thing to watch out for, because it's very common. And that's not to say some people aren't straight up wrong, but you
can hear someone out and then disagree with them, like, and then you don't need to like attack people. But there are, I don't know, there's so many ways to so many different ways of looking at life. So there's a lot of different ways people interpret astrology. That's just like the fact of it.
Yeah.
And I think we have a very particular perspective because we are leftists and more radical, and we have an understanding from things that we've read and how we see the world that can be very different than somebody that's like a conservative.
Yeah. Actually, I'm writing a post on my website about that very thing right now, because I've been using to explain kind of what I do to people. Like, astrology to free your mind is the phrase that I've landed on, because that's kind of the best way that I've been able to sum it up. And so I wanted to write a little bit about what that means. And I think when people that are new to astrology like come to it, it can almost feel like it's like, I didn't know when I first started studying like what real astrology was. I didn't know that the perspectives between astrologers would be so varied. And also, I didn't know that there were a lot of astrologers, quote unquote astrologers, that are out there that aren't actually trained, And it's not that they know nothing, but there's a lot of astrologers out there that are presenting information that is not actually even accurate. So it's not even just a matter of like disagreeing with their interpretations. It's just like stuff that you can just tell that they weren't trained. So that was something that I had no. Yeah. And, I'm not trying to dismiss people that are still in the learning process, but there are people that are presenting themselves as professional astrologers that I'm like, you're not accurate though. And it's not that you have to be 100% right 100% of the time, but I do think that especially when you're dealing with other people's lives, you want to do that justice. Like, I want to provide people with good information. I don't want to just be right or, sound important or whatever. I had no idea. I really had no idea. And so when you're new to it, it's like you don't know what you don't know. But yeah, like it is the spectrum of astrological interpretations are going to really vary depending on how that astrologer views life. Which is one of the reasons why like having these podcasts is I think such a great thing, because people can hear, how we talk about different things in life. And if it resonates, that perspective, then maybe we are people that are worth working with.
Yeah, there's like this sort of self-selective part of that I enjoy having those conversations, because there's that shared understanding of like, okay, yeah, we're using all of, the same signs, and we have definitions for the houses and the planets and what they are, but interpreting that together in a chart can be very different if it's somebody coming from a more like deterministic conservative sort of lens versus us. We're very like progressive, or just like seeing possibilities of, if you're not stuck this way. There's certain things of expressions on like, if you're like super tired or grumpy, like, yeah, you might express it in a more traditional quote unquote way. But that doesn't mean that you're stuck like that. But in a lot of like the astrology books, or just like blogs online, or like reports that you even can get from like professional software or companies, it's a very limited view of things. And especially if we're a little more radical in trying to liberate people, then we cannot just be relying on these old definitions. Because I think we have changed so much as people, and there's been so much growth in just like the collective. We are at a very different spot than we were like in the 70s, when a lot of these books were written.
Oh yeah.
When it was like really popular with like the boomers coming up, and that was like, they kind of changed how astrology was done, because that's like a big chunk of the well-known astrologers came from that time, and they have a certain way of looking at the world that maybe I don't really agree with, and I think it's time to move past. So
I think that's such an important thing for people that are new to astrology to know, because like in these cultural conversations that we're having, I think people can recognize that a lot of these older generations, these prevailing ideas for older generations, have gotten us into a bit of a mess. You know what I mean? Like looking at the world, we're like, oh, we don't like that. We want to change that. It's obviously not working. And do you want that in your astrology? Because that's where a lot of these primary resources are that people that are self-taught, quote unquote, are getting their information. So it's like, it's definitely, I think, a problem for those of us that want the world to progress.
Like, it's not that those things are wrong. It's just one way of looking at things. And there can be a more progressive lens, or a more, I don't know, looking at people as being able to grow instead of just being stuck in whatever prescribed way.
Yeah. And some of those descriptions are just like super outdated. It's like, oh, the woman is, more aggressive or whatever. There's just like very old school ideas about like gender even, and like, the possibilities for your life, very outdated ideas. Yeah. And so like imagine us, millennial / Gen Z, Jennifer Z astrologers that, if we were just like maintaining that lens because it's old, you know what I mean? Like that's a red flag to me.
Yeah, there was a lot of just like the culture was very different. Like women didn't really work outside of the home, and that was weird if you did. you were supposed to like, have babies, get married, whatever, like support your husband, and that was like the thing to do. That's the right thing according to a lot of these older books. And like if you deviate from that, then there's something wrong.
Yeah,
Which
you're
I think
too
now,
aggressive or whatever.
yeah, you're like too much in your masculine or whatever the fuck. Like,
oh no,
I hate that.
so stupid. But yeah, we've like our cultural understanding of gender and just women working, like that has become so much more common and acceptable. And women don't need to have a man to have a credit card or a bank account. Like you can buy your house by yourself. There's certainly still some stuff that's like left over, like people needing to get permission to get like a hysterectomy or whatever from like, oh, your husband has to have sign off on that. So there's like still these things that are left over. And I find that some of those older interpretations can work very well for like an older client, or if someone is very steeped in those traditional quote unquote ideas. But most of the clients that I see are not in that mode, just because I don't really give off conservative vibes. Like
I was just going to say, I can't imagine us attracting that type of client. I mean, I've definitely read for people that are probably a lot more conservative than me. Absolutely. Especially because I've had actually a lot of clients that were older, much older than me. And I'm not trying to like force my beliefs on people, but people, I am kind of surprised sometimes, like the people that find me. And I'm like, oh, I resonated with you in some way. And I love that. I love that, especially if somebody is like from a completely different generation and different like world, I think it's really cool that people are that interested in hearing what I have to say. And I'm not pushing my beliefs on anybody, but I do have a particular lens where I am very forward thinking, and I have an eye on where we are right now as human beings. So, it's a very big transitory moment for human beings. So I think we're all going to be caused to like, step up a little bit and change the way that we do things. We're going to have to.
Yeah. Astrology really bridges the gap, I think, between politics, between generations. It's a universal language, and I know in my experience, whenever I'm explaining, like a placement or what this planet and this sign means, if it's an outer planet or something, like to my mom, for example, like, and explain, what the culture was at that point in time versus now, and how, this planet and this sign, will show more of this energy versus now when it's this, and, just it's fluid in a way. And I love the cyclical nature of it because it always comes back around. Maybe we won't live to see it, but it will. And I don't know, it's just the way it transpires space and time, like literally space and time, but it's just it lets me have it, man. These silly little rocks out there, these gas giants, and
yeah. I really like looking at Pluto specifically for like the generations, which is funny because now that Pluto's in Aquarius, it's those boomers, the Pluto and Leo generation, are kind of getting like, they're one of the only generations that's going to get that because Pluto's moving through like the fastest part of its orbit. So it's kind of funny that it's like coming around. And they were like such a big part of astrology being mainstream in like the 60s and 70s was them. And they, really pushed the community, the astrology community, like forward. But now we're kind of at this point where it's like they kind of have to let go. And there's a lot of them that do not, or that see themselves as very progressive and like forward thinking, but that was like so long ago. Like what is cutting edge now is very different than what was back then. And I think a lot of them are kind of coming to terms with that and being like, I'm not as progressive as I thought. And that's kind of like shocking.
Yeah.
But the good thing about that is usually the people that realize they're not as progressive as they thought, they're very teachable, or they're willing to learn. And I respect that, those that are. But in general, from what I've seen, Pluto and Leo, man, they don't, they're not trying to change. They don't.
No.
That's their story, and they're sticking to it.
No, it's...
I was raised by two of them. Ask me how I know.
Yeah, thankfully I got like a Pluto in Virgo father, and he's the oldest one out of my parents. So I'm like, I kind of skirted that a little bit. He was like a ex boomer. So he definitely has boomer tendencies, but I don't think it's like as bad as it could have been. Um, just good because he's a Leo, Sun and Mercury, and I think if Pluto was there, it'd be like a little too much. He's already very intense, so.
Yeah, I escaped that fate as well. My parents are Pluto and Virgo freaks.
Nice.
They have their own issues.
Mm-hmm.
Different issues.
All the Plutos and whatevers. That's how you know you're an astrologer. You start identifying generations by Plutos and this and Plutos and that.
Yeah. And then there's a couple that are mixed, right? Yeah. Like, because, well, millennials, it's like Pluto in Libra, some of us, and Pluto in Scorpio.
Mm-hmm. Are we all Pluto and Scorpio here?
Except
no,
Jen.
Not Gen Z.
Not Jennifer Z.
Nope, I got a Sag Pluto.
Early degree?
Yeah, I think it's like 6 degrees.
Ooh.
It's conjunct my midhaven, so...
Hey. Okay, teacher.
Yeah, I've always just been shaking it up, I guess. Which is, right. True, because I've always had a lot of interesting experiences with authority figures. People thinking that I'm challenging them when I am just being myself.
Yeah.
I feel like Pluto and Scorpio were just like unkillable. Just like, they keep trying, but
we've been through a lot, and I know all generations have been through a lot, but holy crap, man. Like, the volume and the time frame, it's just been like one thing after another. Like,
yeah. That's what I like to think about the like speed of Pluto moving, because we have lived through this like point of in time of just like our collective humanity that we have been rocketed forward in our like understanding and being exposed to like different things. So I think it's interesting because Pluto, this is like, yeah, the fastest point that we've experienced Pluto moving since it was discovered, since like we've been consciously experiencing this planet. So I think there's like a lot of contradictions and things that have come up through these last 60 years and more that need to be reconciled. And I think that's, as Pluto's starting to move down, like slow down, going to Pluto and Aquarius and forward, we're having to digest these lessons that we've learned. And it kind of first starts with the flip side of Pluto and Leo, being like, okay, it's not just all about the individual. Like, we have to consider how we impact other people and groups, and how, our individual success can be collective success. It doesn't have to be one at the expense of the other. So that's at least what I feel like is coming up. I hope so anyway. Pluto and Sag is interesting because it was the weird swing to like conservatism and like religion and just being like these evangelical Christians kind of just taking over. And we're seeing that now. Like, it's very like clear to a lot of people being like, oh wow, like that's everywhere. And even if you don't like identify as an evangelical, if you like have been in the church in America, like almost any of them, you're gonna probably have been exposed to some of their ideas. I find that particularly with Christian Zionism, insidiously put into, regardless of like what sect of Christianity you are, it's just been like very pervasive and not good.
Yeah,
there's more Christian Zionisms than like Zionists. It's a very anti-Jewish ideology, which was like
extremely. Yeah, That was a weird time to grow up, because that was like the era that I was kind of starting to like have my own thoughts about things, more so, because I was what year was it? What year? It was like 96, I think, that it
Yeah,
went
like 95,
into Sag.
96.
Yeah. So I was very young, but like that was my teenage years as well, was all Pluto and Sag, and God, that was a lot. It was a lot. It was very, I mean, especially as somebody that was being raised by evangelicals. Not all of them, but, a couple of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most of my conscious memories were Pluto in Capricorn after like 2008. I was like kind of aware before then, but yeah, my upbringing was in like a more progressive church, like it was Presbyterian, but we had like growing up now, I see that we had a lot of like evangelical ideas kind of seeped in, or we had like certain youth pastors that were very clearly, evangelical and kind of spreading this stuff that a lot of us that were growing up then just like didn't recognize as like not actually tied to what sect of Christianity we were supposedly learning. There was just a lot. It was like very, very strange. Being like, oh, well, you go to these Christian bookstores and all of this stuff that was spreading, like Christian media and kids' TV shows. And it was, yeah.
I remember when I was probably like high school age, there was this talk about potentially getting some kind of device that would like remove profanity from the TV or something like that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just it's completely just marketed to like evangelical conservative weirdos. And we thankfully never got that, but like it was a conversation that was had. I was like, really? Really?
Yeah. It was like my mom wouldn't let me read Harry Potter because it was witchcraft, which was
that
like,
was huge.
Oh my God. It was like when I was a kid, I wanted to be in with all the cool kids reading Harry Potter, but now I'm like, oh, well, maybe I didn't miss out on much actually. So I did read them later when I was in high school, but I was like, why would you have a problem with this? Like, it's not even that bad. I couldn't dress up as like a witch for Halloween. There's just like really weird things that kind of got put out in the culture that I didn't know where that was coming from. I'm like, why do you care? Like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't make sense to me as a kid.
I remember in kindergarten specifically, my birthday is close to Halloween. So I remember my mom, she made these little like treat bags for the other kids in my class to celebrate my birthday. And it was all like Halloween stuff, because of the time of year. And like one of the things I remember it so vividly, because I think it was my 5th birthday. It was like these little plastic things with, I think, glitter inside, but the ends were like witch heads. And the teacher like confiscated them and was like, yeah, like, because I went to a Christian school and they were like, this, you can't do that.
You're spreading witchcraft.
Yeah, it was really stupid. Like, really, I mean, and this was the end of Pluto in Scorpio. But yeah.
Wow.
It was, that was like kind of the beginning of that era.
It was like satanic panic era. That was like, oh my God.
The new version.
That's
the new version of Satanic Panic. Because Satanic Panic was like the 80s. And it kind of evolved into this other thing, I think. And yeah, weirdly though, there were actually a lot of people at my family's church that were anti Harry Potter, and that was like a big thing. But weirdly, my family was not. I'm actually surprised that that was never an issue. They thought it was actually kind of silly. They're like, it's a make believe, like they didn't take it that seriously, surprisingly. So I was not in that position. And honestly, fuck J.K. Rowling, but like I do think that those books kind of helped me during that time period, being so surrounded by like conservative nonsense, ironically, considering what we know about the bitch now. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, that was progressive for me at the time.
Wow.
I know. Kathy's like, what the fuck? Kathy did not have this upbringing.
I did not go to church until I had to, when I was doing home care as a job in my 20s, and my client wanted to go to Catholic Mass. And I was like, oh shit, okay. I'm
How do
in
I
jail. Is
act?
that all right? Like, could we sit in the back? Because I had just dyed my hair like bright purple the day before. It was a mess, but
gotta get your church hat.
yeah, it was traumatic. I did not like it. The Catholics, they stand up and sit down and get on their knees like 18 times. And I'm not doing all that. So I sat there in my pew and got all the stairs and whatever. I still got paid. It's fine. But my Pluto and Leos, their parents forced them to go to church so much that like the parents would drop them off. They would go into the church. My mom told me about like these accordion doors that they had by like behind the stage on the church, where they'd like go, look between them, check, make sure everyone was in there. Okay, we're gonna go out back and smoke the cigarettes that we hid in the bushes. And then by the time the service was over, they'd go back into the church and wait for the parents to come pick them up. So
Iconic.
apparently before I came along, they made some kind of agreement that they weren't going to force religion or church on me. So
Nice.
yeah, it was I didn't know. I had friends that weren't allowed to read Harry Potter, or weren't allowed to listen to certain kinds of music, or would go to these, I'd get invited to their summer camp, which my mom would never let me go to. And I was always like, well, what the hell? Like, I want to go do stuff with my friends. But then they'd come back and tell me about their vacation Bible school, and doing like haunted houses that were actually hell, and there were like dead babies in there. And like, I'm just glad I was spared.
Classic.
This is bringing all sorts of memories back. Yeah, I distinctly remember the like Halloween parties that they'd have at the church. It'd be like, oh, these like fun games, and like giving us these like weird little zines, basically, of like, this kid didn't believe in Jesus and he went to hell.
Oh yeah. Are you talking about those little ones?
They like sneak them into like the little like treat bags.
Yeah. So my grandma on my dad's side would hand those scary little shits out everywhere. Like in mass, like not Catholic mass. We were not Catholic, but like mass distribution of those little fucking scary stories. So they are really scary. I was exposed to a lot of like really scary stuff at a really young age. Including like things like Vacation Bible School, which was actually like mostly fine, but it was definitely not the worst thing that I experienced. But the Halloween thing is really funny because my the church I went to they call it Hallelujah Night, and they do like a carnival, and so it's like the kids dress up in costumes. They still get like that part of the experience, but it's Hallelujah Night, which I think is like kind of whack.
Yeah. Yep, we had something very similar. That wasn't like the church that I went to, but my mom was like friends with the person who ran that church, so we would go there. It would be like, like a little carnival, like kind of trying to get kids to like that aren't at the church to be like, ooh, this is like fun.
Yeah.
The same with like Vacation Bible School. Like that's not where the craziest stuff would come out. It was kind of like, oh, here, look, we're so fun and like family friendly, and you can send your kid away for like the day, like for a week during the summer, and they're like playing and having fun, and they would have like little, I guess, little Bible school like lessons that they would like kind of try to sneak some stuff in. That wasn't, I don't know. I did not have the best experience with those. It wasn't like horrible, but it was like I got dragged to these every fucking year, and I wasn't a Christian I haven't been for a very long time. Like when I was a kid, I was kind of like, I don't know about all of this. I remember that distinctly when I was like 8 to 10 was kind of like my crisis of faith. I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know what it is, but I don't like this.
Yeah, same. I was like trying to argue with God. I was like, I really don't like this. So I literally was looking at it like a legal text. The Bible was like, how do I make this make sense?
Yeah, I don't even know if I was taking it that seriously. I was just like, I'll like memorize Bible verses. I'm like, it never connected. I would like pray to God to be like, can give me like a good Pokemon on this next like encounter when I would be like playing on my Game Boy. That was like the extent of my relationship with the Lord. It's like, please, Lord, let this Pokeball catch this.
Yeah.
I will pray to you forever.
That's fucking funny.
It was my bargaining with Jesus.
Yeah. I was just really afraid of hell because I had been really, the fear of God had been put in me. So I was like, wow, this is bad for me. I was like, this is bad. How do I get around this?
I think that was one big difference between like my church not being super evangelical. We just had some of the ideas there, is that they didn't really push the hell narrative on us as kids so much.
Nice.
That came later, like when I was like a teenager, but as like a kid, they didn't really freak us out that much about that. Except when I would go to like family friends churches and stuff, sometimes they would get that. I'd be like, that's weird. Like, yeah, it was a very, very scary time. And I don't know what it's like now because I haven't been in a church in over a decade at this point. I imagine it's much the same though.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's gotten any better.
I won't go into a church at this point unless it's a wedding or a funeral.
Yeah, the last time I went into a church was for my brother's, like, he had a baptism. And I went in for that, and that was probably the last time I'll be in a church. Unless it's like a wedding or something, but, like, I'm not going to any of these stupid services. Do not invite me to your dumbass church. I couldn't give less of a fuck.
Well, your burns are healing nicely.
Yeah. Can't even see him now. He like burst into flames upon walking in. The pastor's wife gave me a hug, and I just like,
oh my god,
started cringing and melting onto the floor.
That's not a good sign when they start touching.
Oh my god, why are you hugging me? I don't know you. They're
banking on you just having some issues personally in your life, that you're just vulnerable, and they're like, finally, we can get you into church.
That was pretty much how it happened for my brother. I guess he'd been going for a little bit, but then my mom passed, and then he's like gotten really into it, and I'm like, it is just, I don't know. If it's helpful to him in his journey, fine. It's not helpful for me. And when people have that sort of experience of like, God helped me so much, and they try to like spread that to other people, I just like, leave me the fuck out of it. Like, I don't, good that it helped you. Like, I don't care. Religion, it's never been that for me. It's never been a comfort for me. I know it has for like other people in my family, but I'm just, I don't know. It's like this like weird ability, not like, they just like don't want to accept that that's not the answer for everybody. Like, they just think that that's, I don't expect everybody to think like astrology is the greatest thing ever and to want to apply it to their whole lives. I'm not evangelizing astrology. Like, I couldn't give less of a fuck if you believe in astrology or not. Like, I couldn't care less. I'm still going to use it to analyze you and your behaviors if you don't believe in it or whatever.
Yeah. And the good thing is that you don't have to believe in it, because
exactly.
It's like believing in psychology. You know, it's just like, well, there's information there if you want it.
Yeah. Like, I don't have a problem with people that don't like astrology. Like, I don't care. I don't need other people to like validate what I'm doing for it to be important to me, I guess. I don't know. That's my thing. So I don't really argue with skeptics because I don't care. I have my reasons for liking astrology, and, you know, I don't really care to have debates with people. Like, it just, not my thing. There's other astrologers that do that, and I'm just not interested in that.
Yeah.
If you don't like what I have to say, just like go do literally anything else.
Yeah,
you don't have to listen to me yapping. I don't like, doesn't impact me any.
Please listen to me.
Oh my god. Find something else to do. Like, do your own things. I don't know. Why are you riding my dick so hard? If you supposedly hate me so much, like, why are you here? I don't get it.
Oh, shout out to the haters.
Haters are my motivators. Put my shades on. Can't see the haters.
Right? Incredible.
I don't remember where we were going with this.
Pluto and Sag
Oh.
was a nightmare is I think the conclusion. It was not because not everything was bad, but there was just a lot of really intense.
The shortest Pluto through a sign transit. So I think it's like that intensity was just like compacted into like this very short span of years. And yeah, it was like 11 years. And versus like Pluto in Aquarius is going to be like 20 something. So we're starting to like see that. I think, I don't know if it's less intense, but I think it's just spread over a longer period. So maybe it's like a little more gentle, more gradual transition and lessons. That's what I'm hoping anyway. It feels a lot lighter than Pluto and Cap, we'll say.
Yeah, it makes me think about that sextile between Sag and Aquarius, and like I wonder if this period of time is not partly undoing a lot of that negative stuff that happened very quickly in Pluto and Sag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I feel like there's a lot of kids in the Pluto and Sag generation, so to say, that have very strong political opinions that were formed by things they disagreed with in their childhood or things they saw. And now that we're sort of adults now, for the most part, coming up against those cultural ideas that just like people haven't wanted to change or address, it's coming to this point where we cannot ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
Agreed.
You get the Pluto and Scorpio, just like they've been seeing it this whole time.
Yeah, we've had a lot of time. I mean, and there's like a whole slew of people that are Pluto in Scorpio that are being activated right now as well with that square, which is fascinating that, you know, those early degree Pluto and Scorpio folks. I'm very interested to see like what this energy is doing for them because fairly young, I feel like, to be going through a Pluto square.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be happening to me. It's, I mean, years and years out at this point, but you know, it's coming.
We're next. Yeah.
Yeah. It's on. So I'm mostly asking so that I can prepare. What are you guys doing? What's happening to you? Probably a lot of deprogramming, I would think, for those of us that aren't, you know, conservative nut jobs.
Yeah. Carrie's going through it now.
That's right.
Well, you get to go first on this one, homie. You got to let me know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because her Pluto is aspecting my Scorpio stuff. I forgot that is because her and I have an intense connection because of that. I think because of her Pluto activating my Scorpio stuff, and she has had a very massive impact on me and my understanding of the world and what's possible. She's the first person I ever got a mediumship reading from. I was like, what the fuck? Blew my mind. That was kind of crazy. But yeah, I forgot that Miss Carrie is one of them.
Yeah, I get to experience the sextile here in a few years, so I don't know what that'll be about. I have suspicions, but
yeah, I should check and see what it. Well, actually, I remember that period pretty well. That was you know, but that sextile also for me also happened because I have early degree Cat Moon, so that was also, it was probably more intense for me than it will be for you, I would think.
Yeah.
That was the other thing that was happening. Yeah. Like maybe my notes are not that helpful. Maybe Mackenzie's notes will be better for you on that one.
It'll be like pinging all of my Aquarius stuff, just like, oh my god, just boom, 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 boom.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's been an unfolding the past couple years, but we love Pluto.
Yeah, I mean, that square is backing up and coming back for me too. So, you know, you guys are watching somebody dealing with Pluto transits right now. And honestly, it's mostly been good. It's not that it's not been difficult, but it's, you know, I feel empowered.
Yeah,
mostly.
I feel like that's a lot of the Pluto energy is like it's breaking your shell, cracking you open, and you can feel very vulnerable once that like soft skin is exposed to the light, but you kind of need that to happen to be able to move and grow in different ways and not just stay like stuck in this like, I don't know, it's like armor that we kind of put on throughout our lives that kind of keep us from getting hurt, but at a certain point that has to come off willingly or unwillingly. It's gonna happen. Pluto's gonna make it happen. You're gonna have to force. It's like forced evolution.
Yeah.
It just make you look at things that maybe you've been putting off, or just like, oh, I'll deal with that later. It's like, no, now we're dealing with it now.
Yeah.
Let go or be dragged, bitch. Like,
right. I think for me, like what I've noticed about this Pluto square is that, like, I feel like I've always been able to kind of stand on my own 2 feet one way or another, but like the things that were preventing me from owning how much I am capable of, I think are all being kind of stripped away right now. It's like, there's more to do. And again, like I've said many times, I didn't anticipate being an astrologer. I didn't anticipate like being an astrologer with podcasts. Like all this stuff is just new. And it's also, me sharing ideas in a way that I never have before. So, that's that Mercury action happening in that square for me. And yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, it's exhausting, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's especially this week. We have Pluto trine Jupiter. It's been fucking intense. Like, I've just been very tired, I think. It's not been like horrible, like objectively. I've just been exhausted.
Same.
And
I'm yawning.
Oh my god. Like, no matter how much I sleep, it doesn't seem to really have an effect. It's like very slight. I don't know. Like my body is exhausted. My brain is going a million miles an hour with all the fucking Gemini. Like it's yeah. So finding a way to kind of channel the chaos of Gemini energy into a good productive use of it. Because otherwise I'm just like running in circles in my brain screaming and like that SpongeBob clip with all the people in his mind are going through the filing cabinets. So that's kind of what it feels like, just like throwing papers on the fire. Yeah, well, it's been an exciting week. I got a Patreon started. That was something I did with the energy I had. So it was like mental energy. I'm like, okay, well, I've been meaning to do this, so might as well. And I pulled the chart for it. I'm like, oh wow, I like that Gemini energy. Like Gemini Jupiter is kind of a sleigh. I have been yapping a lot to myself, to my cats. I'm kind of like picking what it is that I want to study for the next year. Like, what can I start? It's crazy to think that like petty astrology was like a year ago. Like, it started almost a year ago. That doesn't like,
yeah,
we're in such a different place now. Like, I have a
my
podcast. God, yeah. We've been doing it like consistently for 6 months, and I did not expect this to happen. It's been a amazing turn of events. So much can happen and change in a year.
Oh god, yeah. It does seem like a lot longer that we were doing season 1, which, by the way, if you're listening to this, is available on Patreon if you were a Love Island head. I took it down so as not to confuse random people that are like, I don't understand why season 1 is so different than season 2. I'm like, well, keep up.
Yeah, that was a good practice, being like, okay, can we do this? Can we work together?
Yeah.
Can Casey learn how to edit a podcast?
Yeah. I did it, ho.
We did it, hoes. It's been a good experience because I have a lot of fun talking to you guys, and I think mean, I hope the people listening really enjoy this. I've gotten people to say that they do, so I hope you guys will continue to listen. Us yapping and having fun, casually chatting astrology. If you want to be a part of the action, you can join my Patreon in the show notes, or you could join Casey's Manifesting Circle, which is also a great place if you're not wanting to study astrology but want to apply it to your life. It's an excellent place.
Slay.
Slay.